phrase, breathe, repeat. Playing melodically is about getting out of your own way. Just follow simple ideas and see where they lead. I'm Eric Haugen. Check the description box below for tabs and backing tracks on my website, information about exactly what sound tools I'm using today, live streams and more on Patreon, and my deep dive courses. It's all on my website. I think it's a good idea to have a core repertoire of well-known songs that you've heard 10 million times, burned into your mind. Study those. Study those great melodic solos. In fact, here I'll put some up on screen that I think would be useful ones to look at, very famous, iconic solos. That gives us information about what came before and how other great players have moved around the fretboard. I think I don't need to tell you why that's valuable. Once you've learned a solo and learned it so well that you can't possibly forget it, remember, not just good enough to okay, I hiccuped through it today. No, again and again and again until it's part of your core musician DNA. Then you can do the next step of analyzing it. And yeah, that's where some music theory, some fretboard knowledge comes into play. Let's talk about David Gilmour's work on Dogs, or some of his work on Dogs. I mean, it's an epically long song. If you're curious about my tone settings, we got the jangle box running as a compressor to add sustain, hitting the Augustus octave fuzz to add fuzz, hitting the Strymon deco to then compress it one more time to try and get as much sustain as I possibly can. I tried a Big Muff. Big Muff was real noisy. This, again, the Augustus octave fuzz, it's a great pedal. And I do have plumber's tape wrapped around the threads, just the tiniest bit, so I can get a real gentle. Let's get the second part of that phrase. Now, you've learned that phrase. There it is down there. Let's pay attention to the chords that are happening while that phrase is happening. I guess I gotta turn the fuzz off. Yeah, I turned the fuzz off just because it makes it easier to talk and teach. Very simple, just dropping down from a D down to a C, which makes sense because there's the chord. That's the thing, just pay attention to how the melody interacts with the chords. Dropping down to there's my C there. And then he's like, hanging on that for a long time. Just a very simple little getting back to the D minor. And then the very simple idea of I'll just repeat that. And yeah, he does harmonize it a third higher. Guitar harmonies are often thirds, just so you know. Let's see, so it's gonna go. So again, I'll put that all in the tab. Honestly, while this is a very beautiful interlude, it's not necessarily the best example that I could think of a hooky melodic solo. I just think it's a really pretty solo that definitely is more melodic than it is lick based. So let's pivot. Great melodies, vocal or otherwise, are often very simple. So we want to reframe our thinking, not about licks, but more about hooks. So yeah, now we're looking at a different song from Pink Floyd Animals. We're looking at Pigs. All right, let's look at the chord progression first. It's E minor, C major 7, G, and this does have what I was talking about last week. Yeah, he's making his own, he's doing a fake delay by stopping it with the back of his hand. 2, 3, 4. Now, we don't have to look at the vocal melody to find a hook, but it is helpful, so let's look at it. And that gives me a little bit of an idea, because I noticed, the first thing I noticed there is, oh, it doesn't start right on the downbeat. And notice how much that is not, Guitar licks are cool. Don't get me wrong. I like a notey, noodly guitar lick more than you would think I do. However, for this style of playing, don't think like that. That's a whole different thing. We're looking for hooks. Let's see what happens if I take some of the rhythmic inspiration from the vocal melody and then craft a solo out of it. Phrase, breathe, repeat. Remember, singers, horn players, they have to take breaths. And so it's okay for us to make a decision about stopping the phrase and leaving some room before we bring it back around again and then modify it. So let's look at this solo that I made up. I definitely don't start on beat 1. That was my initial idea. This really, a very simple idea. And the key with playing melodically, like I said early in the video, is like, you just grab onto that simple thing. Whatever your first idea was, you don't second guess it. You don't criticize it. You don't jump on yourself and be like, well, that's not badass. It's not about that. I was like, well, that works. That works. It's hooky. It's memorable. It has some gaps in it. It has some syncopation. I come around again. And yes, I can see that there's a G chord right here that I'm landing on. It's not super imperative to me. I'm really just listening to the melody. And then that's the classic example of, I ran out of melody. I didn't have something to go there. So that is when I'm going to be like, well, I know that the song goes from a G to a D chord. So I'm like, there's a G, there's a D. And that is something I noticed the greats do. They tend to use chord tones, triads, arpeggios, things like that, when they don't necessarily have a melody idea. They're like, okay, here's some notes from the chord. So it's good trick. All right, that whole phrase. And yeah, I should point out, yeah, that's E diagonal minor pentatonic. Maybe with a little chord tone thrown in. And then I just let it sit. Remember, in real life, the drummer can do a fill there, the bass player can do a fill there, or, God forbid, nothing happens. Just let the note sustain. I got good tone today. Now I'm still thinking of that original rhythmic figure. Ba, ba, da. So I just came around the second time. I'm like, well, I started on that G tone. Maybe I'll just start at a higher part in the scale. Take the same motif, just move it to a different place in the scale. And what happens? I kind of have a slightly different idea now. Huh. I knew that would be cool with an octave fuzz. Okay, so second time around for the solo. I liked that figure. Let me start that figure on a different part of the scale. And then I did end the solo with a lick. I think this is a George Harrison lick. Again, if you don't have an octave fuzz pedal, that's what they do. They screech for you. Some closing points for today. We did talk about playing to changes a little bit. Remember, that's not the priority. The priority is a good, simple hook that you follow it and see where it leads. Sure, when you run out of melodic gas, that's when you start to look down at the fretboard and go, dude, where's my chord? Oh, there it is. I'll play one or two notes from whatever chord is happening. I probably should have mentioned this. Always be able to play the rhythm guitar part for whatever you're playing the lead guitar part for. I think that's common sense. And yep. Oh, and the last thing, play slow and listen to what you're doing while you're doing it. It's probably cooler than you think. Thanks so much to everybody who supports me in all the ways that you do with the like, subscribe, and share. That stuff costs you nothing, and that definitely helps us out a lot. One more time, how my business works. We got Patreon that has every backing track I've ever made, live Q&As, and more. I update that every week. And I make courses. Let's see, with this one, what course that I've made probably goes with this video best. Honestly, Improv Strategies is probably the course that matches up with this video the best. As Bill and Ted would say, be excellent to each other. That includes yourself. Happy Friday. Eat pizza.